All right, you're live.
Good evening. This is a work session of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Sleepy Hollow. We are meeting again via teleconference, which has been okayed by the governor's executive order last year that allows us and other municipalities to do this. This meeting has been noticed on the village website and on the village bulletin board and through other means locally as well. As a practical matter, we're going to continue meeting via teleconference over the next at least couple of months as we work our way through, hopefully work our way through the pandemic. We'll begin this evening with roll call. We'll start with the Deputy Mayor, Ms. Rosalou, Trustee Spiro.
Here.
Trustee Scaglione.
Here.
Trustee Gebler.
Here.
Trustee Gonzalez.
Here.
Trustee Levy.
Here.
And we have a quorum. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to begin our first discussion item this evening is continuation of a discussion about Lower Beekman and a traffic study that was done by our police department and some recommendations that will come out of that. And that will come from Chief Boetti and also with input from John Levy, who has been up front in this whole process. Chief, Trustee Levy, whoever's going to start it off.
Good evening, man.
I believe the chief has the factual data that we were looking for, and I just want to thank him and the Tarrytown Police Department for getting together and swapping some equipment and making this happen. So I'm going to let him give the results of the two studies that he did, and then we'll talk a little bit about what we should do.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. As you recall, we did two different traffic studies. Our first traffic study did have an impromptu traffic measure, being a yellow cone. And that study showed a significant decrease in speed of about 3 to 4 miles per hour, as opposed to the second traffic study, which we removed the traffic cone and it showed an increase in speed. So what I would propose at this point is, being that that area of Beekman Avenue is going to be developed more, and as Edge opens more, more of their parcels and more of their lots, we're going to expect more vehicular traffic and also pedestrian traffic with people using the parks there. Therefore, I would suggest doing a raised crosswalk where the existing crosswalk is over by Hudson Street, and one further east towards Clinton, Barnhart, that area, addressing pedestrians using one of our more frequently used parks in Barnhart Park.
Thank you, Chief. Trustee Levy?
Yeah, so I had a discussion a couple of times with the chief about this, and you know, there's a lot happening down there. There's a lot of truck traffic going through right now, and you know, we both felt that putting something in the middle of the road at this point in time is probably not practical to slow traffic down. But a raised crosswalk with a different color paver, you know, as opposed to just asphalt, is a visual for a person driving a car. And also it would be raised. We're not talking about a speed hump here, to be clear. We're talking about a raised crosswalk, which is, I think it's 3 inches total raised, but it just gives the car a feeling of you know, a slight obstruction and something to notice. But I like the way the chief is suggesting this because it solves two problems. It actually gives us maybe a wider crosswalk, more visually, you know, aesthetically appealing, but also it serves a function of slowing traffic down. It's one of the tools in the toolbox for traffic calming measures. So, you know, and these two things can exist with something additional in the future. You know, I was down there a couple of weeks ago, and the amount of trucks going down with very large things on them, you know, and they need the whole roadway pretty much right now. I'm not saying I favor trucks, you know, to pedestrians, to all our fans out there. But at this point in time, in the next year or two, we have to come up with some other ways, or else they're just going to knock down whatever we put in the middle of the road. I would like to see a small island to, with some plantings in there, just to, have cars kind of slow down and have to squeeze over to the right or left coming up. But for right now, I think this is a great move. And, the chief collected the data. And keep in mind, the first study he did was around, it was just before Halloween.
Right.
And there was some activity. COVID numbers weren't so bad back then. And there was a lot of activity in that area. So cars were parked on the side, which is another way to slow traffic down. They were parked along Beekman, pretty far down. So even with that, I think that the speed numbers were a little high. And the second study proved without a doubt that the numbers were higher. So, I just think you have to look at data and then, make decisions based on that. So I'm in favor of doing it. And also, I just want you to know, Trustee Spiro and Scaglione were involved with this, also Kirsten Harries. And, we were trading emails and, we're waiting for the chief to make some decisions with how he wanted to approach this. So appreciate all the help we got from those guys also,
So John and Chief, I think the raised crosswalks, after we went down and looked at it and after discussion, I think those are a great idea to start off with. And I think, John, eventually down the road when the construction is done, I think having something in the median would definitely be better suited to slowing the traffic down. I just have one question about if we put a raised crosswalk in, and I know you said something there wouldn't be good now, which I agree, but do you think maybe one of those crosswalk signs, those portable ones that, are in the middle that are flexible if they get tagged with something, do you think they would be a good idea as well until the meantime, or should wait for nothing?
Yeah, we discussed that. That's not an expensive option. We could put a couple of the thicker bollards up.
Yeah.
We talked to Richie about that. I don't know if the chief's okay with that. I would be in favor of anything that slows traffic down right now. It might be a while before we get the raised crosswalks. It's not exactly the time of year you want to start doing masonry and asphalt work.
Right.
But if the weather cooperates, we could do something quickly.
I just think a little visual other than
Yep.
just raised crosswalk might bring more attention to it. And it doesn't seem like it would be too expensive to
No.
put in right now. And I know, there's a chance that it could get hit or knocked down, but
That's actually a good way to see if a permanent structure would get hit. So,
right.
we should test it out with a bollard first. That's a piece of plastic, I
Okay,
don't know
great.
what how the chief feels about that. We'll let him speak and then, we can decide,
Okay.
Yes, no, we can definitely properly market, whether it's in the middle of the street or off to the side. We should also get the input of from Superintendent Richie Gross and Sean McCarthy, our building inspector, just to ensure that we're not going to disturb any infrastructure as far as storm drains and stuff when we construct this raised crosswalk.
That's a good point.
Any issue for snow plowing?
We'd have to talk to Richie, Glenn, but I don't believe a raised crosswalk. They're not even considered a speed hump. So if I know they plow around several speed humps in the village now, but that's part of the discussion with Richie. I don't want to answer that question for him. If there's any issues, we'll get back to the board and let you know.
So as far as height or elevation, is it a couple inches? What are you thinking?
Well, typically these raised crosswalks go up about 3 inches in the center, and they're kind of flat on top for the pedestrians, and at the on the wide side they kind of slope down over maybe 2 or 3 feet. So it's a gradual rise up to 3 inches, and then it's flat for the pedestrian center crosswalk.
Yeah, I think signage alerting the motorist that it's there is really important, because if they're not aware of it, 3 inches in the middle, they can get jolted a little bit.
Yeah, we hope so.
Well, not if they're drinking coffee.
Honestly, it's not enough to really jolt you because it's so gradual. These things are wide. I'm going to say they're like 15 feet wide, because there's probably 2.5 feet on either side of the actual crosswalk that's flat, of gradual increase to 3 inches. So, but don't quote me on these numbers, but I've seen a lot of them, and I didn't bring the exact data with me tonight, but you know, we can talk to Richie and you know, finalize it. And we also need to talk to probably Sean McCarthy just to get his
Yeah.
architectural,
Yeah,
you know, because
absolutely.
you put anything in here, any type of pavers,
Mhm.
you know,
And of course, we definitely want Sean's input just to make sure that they are ADA compliant.
yeah.
Chief, how do you feel about the immediate impact of putting a couple of bollards out there in these two locations?
No, I think that would be a great idea. It's definitely a start.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it'll also forewarn the drivers that something's coming.
Yes.
So they'll be used to the bollards, and then when the structure goes up, it's not something brand new. It's something they should have been accustomed to by seeing the bollards there.
Right.
And that we can implement rather quickly if,
Yeah, like I'm thinking tomorrow. So
Very
while
much.
you continue to research the rest of it, it'd be great to get something out.
yeah.
There. The board wants to see that. Okay,
That sounds good.
Yep.
Yeah.
great. All
Sounds
right.
good. Thank you for your work on it, everybody.
Yes. thank
Yeah,
you.
we look forward to the follow-up. And Chief and Anthony, if you could reach out to Richie and get the bollards. Our next discussion item is the new Broadway traffic study. Chief?
Yeah, so we did 2 studies in New Broadway also. The first one, we placed the measuring device at 54 New Broadway, which is right around the area of Maple and New Broadway. And there we saw relatively compliant speeds with only maybe 0.5% doing over the speed limit, right around 29 miles an hour. Like I said, that's only 0.38% of the speeders there. But when we moved the measuring device closer to Pine, closer to Route 9, we saw an increase of speed.
Mm.
Once again, it was less than 1%, but they were higher to 29.9%. I mean, 29.9 miles an hour, which is some cause for concern there, which residents have brought to our attention as vehicles are speeding up trying to beat the light.
Oh.
So there, and also as you're going south on New Broadway, right around Maple, there's a slight bend, and then the road lines up where you can see the traffic light, which was obviously cause for the speed of them speeding up trying to beat that light, taking their eyes off the road and the side streets, focusing on the light. So what I would propose there, and we should definitely discuss further, is possibly elongating that New Broadway island, making that section of the road a little bit more narrow, because there's no parking on the west side of that street. And this should definitely calm traffic.
How long would it have to be elongated for it to make a difference? And how much space do you have to work with?
That we would have to, once again, get Sean McCarthy involved, and just to make sure that we're compliant also as far as the width of the traffic lanes. I would propose a permanent structure if we wanted to do cones temporarily to see how it works, do another study
Mhm.
with the cones in place.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I think I would rather do that before putting a permanent structure, and just to see if, having something there obstructing the pathway a little bit, see if it worked.
Okay. So you guys, everybody good with that?
Yes.
How could you not be? I guess is the question, the real question. It's an opportunity to do something that's really simple, inexpensive, and quick, just like putting the bollards on Lower Beekman. So again, the Anthonys will follow through on that.
Yes, we will.
Sorry, Chief Boetti and Mr. Giacchio. Okay, great.
So
Good.
I don't know if,
Go ahead.
if the Administrator Diacho had ever let you know about this, but myself and the administrator had the opportunity to speak with Abinanti's office and the school in regards to, and the DOT in regards to the back entrance of Sleepy Hollow High School. And it was the first and probably only time that I was in a meeting with 5 different Anthonys, not related.
And it's none of them were Tony, huh?
There was one Tony, but we considered him Anthony. His
That's
given name
great.
was Anthony.
He became Anthony.
Needless to say, nothing got done.
No cannolis, no
I didn't
coffee.
hear about it.
Okay. Well, we'll leave it. Yeah, there was a pop group, right? Anthony.
Tony.
Tony.
I
You came up with that one quick, Chief.
All right, great. We look forward to seeing those temporary pieces out there. Our next discussion item is the police reform collaborative effort that's been ordered by the governor. And it would note that effort has been underway for some time. We've had some meetings at St. Teresa's with members of the community to discuss policing and other matters. But well, the chief has also had meetings downtown and with students from the high school as well as part of this effort. So it's time for us to appoint the actual collaborative committee. And I've circulated a list of names of people who have indicated that they would participate. And I think it's a representative group from various neighborhoods in the village, as well as other stakeholders, nonprofit organizations, and the schools and our major employer as well. For the record, I am going to appoint the following folks to the Reform Collaborative, and they are Glenn Taylor, Chris Borsari, Sister Susan Ardella, Sarah Smiley, Deanna Loha, Lena Tapia, Edison Hernandez, Luis Tenazaka, Mariano Guzman, Christian Aquila, Alberta Germain, Ann White, Bavia Reddy, Ethan, I'm sorry, I would say Christ, but Ethan, Peter Oppenheimer, members of our police department, which will include Chief Bowetti, and officers Kemotek, Ben Cosme, and Morrison. At least 2 of those officers will be participating all the time, Officer Ben Cosme and one of the other 2. And Sandra Spiro and other who had expressly made clear interest in being part of the board. And members of this board, the Board of Trustees, are welcome to participate in any and all of those sessions as well. I would just remind folks that the purpose of this collaborative is to review policies specific to the village of Sleepy Hollow and how we may be able to improve both the relationship between our police department and policing in the village. I think that the biggest point of this that's made in the governor's order and in some of the other materials that he has distributed is to have an ongoing dialogue and an open dialogue between members of our community and our police department, so that we have a forum to understand one another, for members of our police department to understand how they are perceived by our residents, and for members for residents to have a better understanding of the role of the police department and what their responsibilities are. And I see this not as a one-time, oh, we're complying with this mandate from the state, but as something that, yes, we will comply with that, but as an ongoing opportunity for us to have a collaborative between our residents and our police department, and to have a forum, an established forum to do that. And I've spoken extensively to the chief about this, and I think we agree on that being the approach, the one that makes sense for Sleepy Hollow as we continue to engage in this project. Chief?
Yeah, no, Mayor, I agree. This is it's going to be an ongoing process that a simple 9 months isn't going to get it done. So the ongoing process, listen, we'll comply and get it done by April 1st, but it has to go on further. It's got to go on a year, 2 years, 3 years, hey, maybe forever, just to keep that dialogue open.
I agree. The point I want to emphasize is that we are going to be focusing on what happens here in Sleepy Hollow. We were all witnesses to some pretty horrific things last year in 2020. And hopefully we won't be seeing that kind of stuff around the country in 2021. Be that as it may, as much as we all hope that, our focus has to be on what we can accomplish here locally and what makes the most sense for us and what actually happens here in Sleepy Hollow. So I look forward to that. I would ask the members of the board to approve these appointments. At the end of this meeting, I'll ask for a special session so we could actually do that. And one other thing that I would add, and that is that as we see it necessary or appropriate to add people to this collaborative, we will do so. Any questions from the board? Okay, we will move on to our next discussion item. And that is Ms. Giacchio, if you could lead this one, and that's getting bids on the waterline repair project.
Yes, the village board should be aware of this project. This is one of the capital projects we approved back in September. We have a leak in a pipe that comes down from the reservoir through the cemetery, and we need to repair it. We just want permission to go out to bid. Doesn't commit the village to spending the money yet, but we want to go out to bid, and when the bids come in, we'll review them and make a recommendation.
So we've gotten like where we have a scope and so on, and it's now it's appropriate for bids. Okay.
So the process is, once the capital budget was approved, then it's turned over to the engineer to design the repair. It has to be approved by the health department, and then they're ready to go now. So ready to go out to bid.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. The next up, similar discussion item, and that is going out for bids on our reservoir repair project, which has been a long time coming.
Our reservoir in the preserve is close to 100 years old. The only repair it ever had done to it was a roof was added to it, I think in the 70s. Now that we have a new reservoir, we can provide water to the village while taking that reservoir offline to repair it. So we're gonna, there's damage. There's actually a hole in the reservoir, but we're gonna make repairs to it and put it back online when it's done. And same thing, we would like to go out to bid on it. No commitment of funds yet until we get the bids and make a recommendation.
I think the only people that, not people, but beings that would be upset by the repair would be the migrating birds that come through. Apparently, a lot of birders have told me that there's birds that are not native or natural to this particular area, but because of the water leaking out over the years, it's changed the vegetation at the bottom of the reservoir, and it's attracted birds that normally wouldn't be there. So there is a bonus to a leak, but it's a very expensive one, expensive bonus, and I don't think they'll be very happy about it. But they don't usually have a voice in our meetings, so we'll be able to live with it. Any questions from the board about this project?
No.
Okay, we'll put it on to do the authorization next week at our regular board meeting. Next up, we have talked about this at various times, but a tree inventory project. Mr. Giacchio, want to remind us of the nature of this project?
Approximately 5 years ago, we had a tree inventory project done by Arbor Pro. We had received a grant for them to do this work. 5 years is enough time to renew the inventory. A lot of things have happened over the years, including just growth of the trees, and new trees are planted and pruning, and trees have fallen. So it's time to update the inventory. This does a few things for us. One, it gives us an opportunity to apply for grants. We applied for a grant last year for tree management program, and they said we really needed to have an updated tree inventory. I also showed the proposal to the newly ad hoc tree management committee. I guess that's what it's called. The members of the various committees that have merged to talk about how we can better manage our tree inventory. And they are in favor of this. Because it's the same company, we had a much less expensive than had we done it from scratch. I do want to say that last time we did not do a very good job of maintaining the inventory. Every time a tree is cut down or pruned by our DPW staff, it needs to be recorded in the system, and we'll make a more serious effort at keeping it up to date as we move forward. And the board has a copy of the proposal.
Anthony, over the 5 years, have they improved their approach in collecting the information, and is it easier to use? Was that part of the problem? Was it automated enough?
That's a good question. I think there was several issues. We had a grant for it. We didn't have buy-in from the people that need to be recording this. So
Sure.
this time around, we have a tree trimmer that's on staff that wasn't back then.
Okay.
We take a little more serious approach to record keeping with regards to how we maintain our trees. So I'm more confident this time around we'll do a better job at it.
Okay.
But there were a few reasons, but I think now we're prepared, better prepared for it.
Okay.
I don't even know if they knew the importance of keeping it up to date. You know, it's just, it's something that that we needed to educate staff on. So
Okay.
I think we've done a better job on that.
I think I remember the presentation that was given
Yeah.
maybe about a year ago. I know Kirsten
Yeah, yeah.
was on that. They did a really nice job, and they put a lot of work into it. So it seems like a lot more people are vested in it. And I got to think that the company themselves have probably advanced on their side in helping and doing that education. And it's perfect timing with a lot of the stuff that is going on with our trees. And I think if we just stay on top of it, it'll be easier to maintain, as to your point.
Yeah, and there's more of a focus on better tree management now, and
Yes.
so I think it'll be kept up to date moving forward.
Okay. Yeah, it seems like you have the support from all the right places. Thank you for putting the work in.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, so we'll put that on for next week for a resolution as well. That completes our work session agenda for the evening. I'd like to ask for a motion to go into special session for the purpose of approving or considering approval of the police collaborative members.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second,
Seconded.
moved by Deputy Mayor Rosenblum, second by Trustee Levy. All in favor say aye.
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 That was everybody. Pretend there's a gavel. We're now in a special session of the board called for one reason, and that is to consider approval of the Police Reform Collaborative and the names that I mentioned during the work session. Can I get a motion to approve the collaborative?
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved by trustee Gonzalez and seconded by deputy mayor Rosenblum. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
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 That is a unanimous. Thank you all. Can I get a motion to end the special session?
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved by trustee Gebler, seconded by trustee Gonzalez. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You're muted, Ken.
Yeah, I can't hear you, Ken.
Uh-oh.
You might have to get closer to the mic.
Yeah.
Can't hear
Sorry.
you.
That completes, our special session is adjourned. That completes our agenda for our work session. I want to note for the record that the board is going to be meeting an executive session later on this evening at 8 o'clock for the purpose of discussing negotiations. We plan on taking no action in that meeting, but I just wanted to make sure that that was noted for the record. So thank you all for watching us tonight. And I look forward to seeing everyone next Tuesday, and I look forward to seeing the members of the board in a little less than half an hour.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Okay,
Thank
good
you.
night.
All right. Bye.
Good night.